Hello everyone and welcome to episode 2 of Remaking Cavestory in C++. For this episode we are going to be creating the game window. So when we start the program, what we expect to happen is a little window will pop up where the game is going to be played and everything will be drawn there, and that's the game screen. So that's what we're going to be focusing on. My name is Lime Oats. My website is www.limeoats.com and my Twitter is @limeoats. So I like to start my episodes by identifying the problem that we're solving in this episode. So our problem is we need a window on the screen to draw our game to. Pretty straightforward. We need somewhere to draw our game. So we're going to create a screen to do that. I might say window, I might say screen. Screen and window are the same thing. I mean the same thing when I say each of those. So I might use them both, but I always mean just the window where the game's going to be played. Some details about drawing the screen. We're going to have a class, a C++ class, dedicated entirely to graphics. This is beneficial. You'll see why later. Instead of having everything all in one file, we're going to have all of our graphic stuff in one class. And also it's important to note that Cavestory's resolution is 640 by 480, so that's going to be the size of our screen. So just a few details. So our solution, how are we going to solve this problem of getting a screen drawn? Well, first we're going to split up headers and implementation files. So if you remember, we created our main.cpp over here under source. Well, we're going to keep source, but we're going to add two folders underneath that. One for our header files for our classes and one for our implementation files for those classes. Then we're going to create a graphics class. So we'll go through creating a new class, where all those files are going, all of that. That graphics class is going to use some SDL functions, so we'll know for sure if all of our stuff is set up correctly, all of our includes and linker stuff. And then we're going to call the graphics class from main for now, just to make the window show up. Eventually we're going to move that out of main, but that's for a later episode, probably next episode. So yeah, let's get started with that. Let's start by creating our new folders. So we'll just go in order of my solution stuff. So new folder, I'll call this headers. So I'll also then create a new folder called src. src is going to have our implementation files, headers will have our header files. So I'm going to just drag main.cpp into src, just so that it's in there. So now that that's done, we'll create our graphics class. So to do that, let us right click on our headers folder, new file. I could probably do new class, but I like starting with an empty file. It's usually best. And then let's just call it graphics.h. So for those of you who don't know, a header file holds, well, I'm going to talk in terms of classes. This is going to be an object-oriented approach for making this game. So in object-oriented programming in C++, in header files, you define your class. You don't implement it. You can implement it in the header file, but we're not going to. We're going to separate it. We just write it out like a skeleton of the class almost, just to define everything. So we'll start with header guards, just so that none of this stuff gets included twice. So just our if and def, our define, and our end if. So now we'll just create a class called graphics. Okay. Is that too small to see? Probably. Let me go ahead and make the font size a little bigger so everyone can see. Yeah, alright, that's why. So I'll just make this 24 so everyone can see what I'm doing. There we go. So that's a little better. Hopefully everyone can see well. If not, please leave a comment on the video or tweet at me or something telling me that everything's too small and I'll make it bigger for next episode. And of course, if there's anything you can't see for some reason, it's all going to be in the GitHub as soon as I upload this video, so just go there. Alright, public, private. So we're going to need two things in our graphics class for now. We need an SDL window. Call it window. We're going to make it all private. And an SDL renderer. Now, both of these are new, I believe, in SDL2. The window is what we're drawing, or where we're drawing to, I mean, and the renderer is what actually does all the drawing and stuff to the window. So, we obviously didn't include SDL yet. I don't want to include SDL here. So I'm gonna, since these are pointers, I can forward declare SDL window and SDL renderer. Forward declaring basically just, forward declaring allows me to use these variable names for pointers, even if they haven't been included yet, because we're gonna include them in the implementation file in a second. That's useful so that it just helps not including things too many times. Sometimes that causes errors that are very hard to debug. So all we need now is just a constructor for graphics and a destructor for graphics. And that's it. This is our graphics class. So now all we have to do is implement it. So in our source file folder, I will create a graphics.cpp where we're just going to implement everything we just wrote in our graphics class. So I'll say include graphics.h to include that. And in my implementation files, I like to sometimes I have multiple classes implemented in the same implementation file, and it gets a little confusing, so I like to just separate it with a nice comment saying what we're doing. So this stuff should go here. I'm also going to include SDL here. Alright, so we're going to include SDL there. Since we're never including a CPP file, it's okay you can include whatever you want here. It's best to try to include as little as you can in the header files and forward declare wherever possible, but in CPP files, include everything you need. So now we're just going to separate everything. We only have one class for right now, obviously, but it's good to start separating with comments. So graphics class holds all information dealing with graphics for the game. So alright. So there's our comment. So now we can start implementing. So all we really have here in the graphics class is a constructor and a destructor. In the constructor, we need to create the window and initialize some stuff. And in the destructor, we just need to destroy the window, just to clean everything up. So I'll start with the constructor. So we're not setting anything equal to anything right now in the constructor. SDL2 provides us with a function to create the window and the renderer together. So we're going to use that. It's called SDL create window and render. Creative name. What did I say? The first parameter. It goes in width, in height, some flags, the window, and the render. So the width and the height is the resolution that I talked about before. I said it's 640 by 480. Alright, so that covers the width and the height. What else? Some flags. On the SDL website, there are some flags that we can put here. We don't want any of them right now, so just put 0. It's an int, so you can just put 0 and it won't include any flags. If you want to include flags, you can OR them together, I believe, with the single OR operator, but we don't want any of those, so don't worry about it. Now it wants a pointer to our window pointer. So we're going to put an ampersand, and then we're going to take the window like that. Side note, I use this everywhere possible because it just makes it more obvious that we're dealing with the variables of the class and not something else. So if you ever see this and you don't like it, you don't have to put this, but I will always be putting that because I like it. So again, you don't need this, you can just get rid of it like this and just keep that if you want, but I like having this there. Oops, so put your semicolon and that's that. And then I'm also just going to set the window title for now. I don't really know the correct title. It's probably just Cavestory. So I'm going to, this wants, by the way, an SDL window and a const character array of type called title. So just pass it Cavestory. That's that. So that's our constructor. Now we just need to write the destructor, which is only one line for now. And it's just SDL destroy window. They give you another function to destroy the window, just like they gave you one to create it. And just pass it your window. And that's it. So that is our graphics class for right now. So now all we need to do is from main, as I wrote here, call it from main for now. So we need to just call the game class from main. And all I'll be doing is creating an instance of the graphics class. And the constructor will get called, this stuff will happen, and that's it. So I'm going to go to main. This is our stuff from before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a comment up here, just since it's a CPP file, I want to have a comment. I'm going to say main.cpp, and I'm going to call it the entry point of the program, just so we know what we're dealing with. We don't need stdio anymore because we're going to clear out this. We're going to want to still include, we don't need to include stl.h for now either. Alright, I do want the return 0 though, so now I need to include our graphics class that we just created. So we include graphics, now we can create an object called graphics. And then if I was just to run it like this, the screen would appear and it would then just disappear right away because the program would end. So I'm just going to put a while true loop. This will go on forever. So before you run this, make sure you know how to quit a program or it's just going to keep running and you're not going to be able to close it. So make sure in whatever IDE you're using, you know how to close a program. In Eclipse, you can hit a little stop button down here that I'll show you in a second. So this is it. We should be able to run this now and it should work. I'm currently in the wrong perspective. Here we go. Alright, now we're in C++. So I'm going to run this, and we're going to see what happens. Build errors. What is this? Graphics.h not found. Alright, that's fine. The reason graphics.h isn't found, even though it's in our headers folder right here, is because it's not in our list of includes. So we need to add it to our include. The path to our header folder, I mean, we have to add it to our include paths. So let's do that. Right click on your project and click properties. Alright, so now we're going to go to C/C++ general this time. Expand that. Paths and symbols, I believe. And I need to add the header folder to the includes here. So I'm going to click on GNU C++. And I'm just going to add workspace, source, headers, okay. So now if I build again, it worked. It found my header file and it worked. So just make sure you add your header folder to your include. So now if I run the game, it took me off of my Eclipse screen, but you see the window here. Let me minimize this. Here's the window. So this is where our game's going to be drawn. It's frozen right now because it's just in a while loop forever, so my computer doesn't like it. Well, we're going to fix that in the next episode, but for right now, that's the window. The title's not at the top for some reason. The reason the title's not at the top, let me look at the code really quickly. Alright, I think that when the title's not at the top because it's stuck in the while loop. I think once we fix that in the next episode, it'll show up. And if it doesn't, we'll figure that out. But yeah, that is how we get a window shown up. So that's a good place to end for this episode. So let's just talk about what we're going to do next time. In the next episode, we're going to do a bunch of exciting stuff to start making this work better. We're going to create a game class to hold the game loop. So basically, the game loop, once it's listening for events and stuff, it's going to be a while true loop just like we have already. We already have a while true loop, but it's going to be listening for events, so it's not going to be hanging like this. If there's no event, it's going to go back around, but it's going to be waiting. So that's going to solve that problem. So it won't be stuck in an infinite loop anymore. So yeah, it's going to listen for events in the game loop, and then we're going to also implement inputs so that we can close the window and no longer have an infinite loop. And then we'll also create a skeleton for the game class. So we'll create our a bunch of other stuff that we'll go into our game class. We'll start making. So that'll be a fun episode. Yeah, that's it for this episode, though. So please subscribe if you haven't already, so that you can find out when I when I upload the next video. I would appreciate that very much. Also, please give me a follow on Twitter @limeoats. Visit my website if you want. All this code will go in the GitHub, which I should probably start putting the link to that up here. If you want the GitHub code, go there. github.com/limeoats/cavestory-development. You can also get this from my website. So yeah, go check out that code, and I will see you back next time to implement the game class. Thanks for watching.